has won game number 1 here. And we will take a look at the board position. Boettcher is at 9. Velasquez is at 20. And Gonzalo has a Velasquez in play, it looks like, along with a Courser, an Elvis Mystic, and a couple of lands on Boettcher's side of the table. He's got a couple of lands, and Mutavault among them, and a Underworld Connections.
Yeah, it looks like this game he's just kind of been like staving the onslaught a little bit and is now trying to wrest control, draw some cards with Underworld Connections, and then we see a Green Merchant in his hand, which is probably the perfect card to have in this type of situation. Gain some of that life back, stabilize the board a little bit, eventually go on the offensive with
Green
some
Merchant
2/4s.
has been the card that has impressed me like the most just on this particular tournament. I know like some people who play like Black Devotion don't love it.
Yeah. Well, there are just so many games where you get Thoughtseize and they kill one of your creatures, and maybe you're stuck on 4 land or whatever. You have 2 Grey Merchants and no board, and it's like, oh, this card's so bad. I wish I had Blood Baron or something more high impact. But the games where the deck is running on all cylinders, has the connections going, has like a Nightveil Spectre in play, Grey Merchant is probably your best card.
To me, like the way that I look at like a card, if I feel like it's very good or not, is when I'm playing against a deck and when I'm playing against them, I'm just like, man, I hope they don't have X.
Yeah.
Like, if I feel that way about, like, Pack Rat, obviously,
Sure.
and Thoughtseize, and Desecration Demon, and Lifebane Zombie if I'm playing a green deck, but I also feel that way, like, when I'm trying to close out a game against Mono Black, it's like, I really hope they don't have crap. All right, there's a Merchant. You gain 4 and drain 4. I've got more work to do.
Yep. And Grey Merchant just does something that no other card in the deck can do. It gives you that reach to deal the last few points of damage. It gains you life, which no other card in the deck really does, aside from, like, maybe something like Farika's Cure. But that's even, like, very matchup specific and only a fixed amount, whereas, you know, sky's the limit for Grey Merchant, really.
Here's a Thoughtseize from Velasquez. Now, he did take up the Vraska. That is in place. So that's up to 3, so he can threaten to Vindicate next turn. The top card of his deck from Courser is a Stomping Ground, and Velasquez did draw, didn't draw, he had a copy of Nissa in his hand. Now, Nissa's not great on this board because of Pack Rat.
Right, yeah. Pack Rat outpaces many things very quickly.
Now, Jared is a little bit scared of this Thoughtseize because he has a Hero's Downfall in his hand. He also has that Grey Merchant that you spoke about. Now, the question now is, do you let this resolve, or do you cast the Hero's Downfall right now to take care of the Planeswalker? That's exactly what's going to happen, and this is great here for Gonzalo because now Nissa is open for business.
Right. You clear the way for that, and, you know, you're still at 20 life, but is it going to beat Pack Rat over the course of a few turns? Probably not. Probably need to find something else.
Yeah.
Mizzium Mortars is basically the perfect card against Pack Rat.
And drawing Stomping Ground next turn is not all that great. Now, Velasquez does have 3 Mizzium Mortars in his deck.
Yeah. I mean, he has the Courser in play and has not played a land.
He has, actually,
I don't think he has. I think he just
has.
drew the Thoughtseize and that was it.
Okay.
So, yep, there we go. Play the land. 6 mana, which is right where Nissa wants to be. Have enough mana to play Nissa, activate a land, and then be able to attack or block with that land.
You see him organizing his land here, figuring out what land he wants to probably animate to start attacking with. Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be the Temple. So there is Nissa. That's going to go up. That's going to become a 4/4, and the red zone is a pretty safe place to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some merit to keeping your land back to try and protect Nissa, but also Jared's at 8 life.
Yeah, that's why I want to attack.
Oh, I know you want to attack. You always
I
want
always want to attack. You're right. I could have no cards in hand attacking a 2/2 to a 7/7.
Yeah, I mean, is it even a bad idea to attack with Courser there?
I'm a little surprised he didn't attack with Courser, actually. Because if you attack with Courser, you're able to put your opponent down to 2, and then Courser becomes lethal the next turn.
Right. And then in order to actually kill the Nissa, Jared would have to animate Mutavault and make a Pack Rat. So that's like eating up more of his resources while you're also dealing him damage. And maybe at that point, you don't care if Nissa lives or dies. You still have a 4/4. You put Jared to 2. It's very unlikely that he's going to be able to activate Underworld Connections unless he has something like a Grey Merchant. And if he does, then Elvish Mystic is another lethal threat.
Yep. Well, Boettcher's going to do some counting now.
Got a lot of math to do.
And he's going to do some scooping.
Okay.
Less math than we thought.
Yeah.
Knows that he's beat. So Velasquez is going to win game number 2, and game number 3 is where we are heading, which means we can take a look at the sideboards here. Now, this is the 3rd time we looked at Jared's sideboard this weekend. We know he doesn't have Farika's Cures and Drown in Sorrows, but he doesn't need them for this matchup.
3 Doomblade, 3 Lifebane Zombie, 3 Duress, 2 Negate, 2 Erebos God of the Dead, 1 Notion Thief, 1 Underworld Connections. And much like a lot of the other matchups we've seen, like Jared is playing against basically a control deck. So he's going to want the same type of stuff. The Duresses, probably the Negates, the Ereboses, The other Underworld connections. Again, this is not a matchup where Notion Thief is particularly good. Maybe if he thinks his opponent has like 4 copies of Read the Bones in his deck or something, you might want to try and snipe some of those, but it does not look like that's the case.
I think we're looking at a donut for Read the Bones.
Yep.
None of those here. Sideboard here for Gonzalo. We have Amazing Immortals, 2 Thoughtseize, a Golgari Charm, a copy of Rakdos' Return to go along with the one in his main deck, 2 Scavenging Ooze, 2 Doomblade, 2 Magma Spray, and then 4 copies of Mistcutter Hydras. These sideboards for Jump Planeswalkers really do look the same, kind of. Like, there's some additional removal spells. It seems like they all have 4 copies of Mistcutter Hydras because they can ramp into it.
Right.
And then maybe a little additional discard, be it Thoughtseize or Duress. He's playing against mono black, so I actually kind of like these 2 Thoughtseizes. I like the additional copy of Rakdos' Return. The removal spells, obviously Doomblade's not going to come in. The other ones I think are actually kind of negotiable. Like G-Charm can kill connections. It can kill a Pack Rat. It just has some overall versatility because the card's versatile.
Yeah.
Do you want that card? I'm not sure. I mean, we look at the main deck. He's got 2 Dreadboards, an Abrupt Decay, a Charm already in his main deck, 3 Mortars, 2 Ultimate Price, and a Putrefy. How much are you supposed to have?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and maybe a lot of it is just tuning it to fight this particular deck.
You know, there's the 4th Mortars in the sideboard. Mortars are great against Pack Rat if he gets himself in that situation. Really bad against Demon.
Yep.
So, you know, there's that concern. Scavenging Ooze is pretty good if you get into, like, this kind of weird kind of game, but it also brings into question of how much will you be able to activate Scavenging Ooze. You know, Gonzalo does have creatures in his deck. He's got 4 Mystics, 4 Caryatids, and 4 Courser Crucifix. And then Jared has creatures of his own, and Gonzalo has a bunch of removal spells, so maybe Ooze is better than we think.
I mean, we saw Eric Smith ride it to victory.
That's true.
Earlier, I think in round 5.
Yep.
And Ooze looked really good there, especially in combination with Rakdos' Return. And it was one of the threats that just kind of like got under what everyone was doing. And you got to imagine that Jared is going to cut some of his removal.
Yeah, the question is, of course, like how much?
Yeah, how much and which ones, you know?
Which is pretty hard to predict. And I actually think that puts Jared at like maybe a bit of a disadvantage. Like you have to wonder how much he has played against like this particular archetype because like, it's relatively new. And also all the builds are like pretty different.
Yeah.
So, you know, I imagine like he's got his plan set in stone if he's playing against like Black-White Midrange, Mono Black Devotion, you know, Rabble Red, which is sideboard nothing, basically.
Yeah.
But, you know, for Jund Planeswalkers, it's like, well, you know, this deck, I can have a lot of different things going on as Velasquez is going to take a mulligan.
Yeah, but you got to imagine someone coming into a standard tournament, they've almost certainly played against a Black Devotion deck, right?
Yeah.
They have a good plan for that. You know what that deck is going to try and do. You're not going to see too many curveballs.
Yeah.
But this deck is just like, well, A, I don't know what they're going to try to do against me in sideboarding, and they could do something weird like play Scavenging Ooze, or they could just have some weird cards. Like, I mean, I've seen people like bring in Mistcutter Hydras against Black Devotion decks.
Just have like a big threat with your mana.
Yeah. It's like you play 2 pretty long games, and then they have to assume that you don't have very many creatures. They're going to side out a bunch of removal, and then you're just like, all right, 4/4 haste.
Yep.
What you got?
Don't have an answer, most likely.
Oh, that's weird.
This particular version has a lot of removal.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be the way that you're supposed to go in this particular matchup, which is, you know, they draw a lot of their creatures, you kill them all, and, you know, you can just ride, like, incremental advantages from your Planeswalkers.
Yeah. Jund's Planeswalkers are really the key. Like, you have to be able to protect those, and removal is basically the best way of doing that because you're not going to be able to block a Pack Rat or block a Demon or, like, even, you know, sack enough things to hold down a Demon for long enough. So as long as you keep their board clear, every time you play a Nissa or a Xenagos, you're going to be able to use it once before it bites into a hero's downfall. And yeah, you just ride those small incremental advantages. Now, if you're Gonzalo and you're currently mulliganing to 5, that's going to be a lot more difficult.
Things change a little bit now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, not the best time, but it never is.
Right.
It never is. He is on the draw, so let's throw that in the equation.
That's true.
Yeah, Courser can undo some things. Temples can as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think what Gonzalo wants to see right now is a turn 2 Caryatid followed by turn 3 Courser hit.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, the work is undone. Maybe next turn we can play some removal spells, play Thoughtseize removal spell, and then after that start jamming Planeswalkers.
It's got to be the plan. He's going to need some things to break his way now, though. That's for sure.
I think the first part of the plan is get a keepable hand.
Step 1 of many.
Yeah.
Ugh. There's a Temple. This is a Thoughtseize. Yep. So there is a Sylvan Caryatid. There's also a Nissa, a Thoughtseize, and a copy of Rakdos' Return along with a Temple. That Temple is going to have to be working overtime.
Yeah, people say that mulliganing once against Black Devotion and getting Thoughtseize is the worst. But I think it's actually mulliganing twice.
It's this.
Yeah.
This is
Where
it.
it's like, okay, we're kind of doing it. Our hand is playable. We have some stuff going. Oh, Thoughtseize.
You just have like Watergrave tapped, right? That's your first turn, Jared?
Yeah.
No.
Please.
No, I'm going to destroy your hand. I'm taking your Sylvan Caryatid. Dreadbore is the draw. Temple, Scry, right to the bottom.
Yep, that probably was not a land.
Yeah, chances are. Jared draws a negate for the turn. That's a Mutavault. This is another discard effect. I thought it was a Thoughtseize, but it is a Duress.
Effectively the same thing since Gonzalo doesn't have any creatures anyway.
Yep.
Jared gets his pick.
Wouldn't be surprised to maybe see him take Thoughtseize here.
Yeah. I mean, it is like the one card that Gonzalo can cast in the next few turns, right?
And Jared knows about the removal spells, so he can play around them accordingly. Gonzalo's draw was just an Elvish Mystic, so just passes the turn back. Boettcher will play an Urborg, fire in it for 2 with the Mutavault, it looks like, and just pass the turn back over to Velasquez, who does draw a Thoughtseize. He will fire that off and going to 16 to do so. It's a negate, 2 heroes downfalls, and a swamp. No blue mana here for Boettcher, so the negate's a touch awkward.
3 things that deal with a Planeswalker.
I think you just take a downfall.
Yeah.
If he draws blue mana, I mean, so be it.
I mean, Jared has, what, 7 sources? Yeah.
I think it's 4 temples, 3 waters?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep, there goes downfall. But no second land here for Gonzalo. So he'll get to write that information down, and Boettcher will move on to his 4th turn in just a moment. I predict that Jared will draw Desecration Demon.
Okay, that's a good draw. Does Gonzalo redraw him with a land that casts Dreadbore?
Maybe. It is an attack here for 2 and just a swamp. A rather innocent turn. A Stomping Ground.
Yeah, that's a start. I mean, all things considered, double mulliganing, getting Thoughtseize and Duress. Jared doesn't have a whole lot of action going on, and Gonzalo's not in the worst position. If he draws enough mana sources, cards like Rakdos' Return and Nissa are going to be very, very good.
Jared looks like he might be flooding a touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a downfall to get that off the table. Another Dreadbore. Ah, Mutavault. Tricky, tricky. In for 2 more. Can't Dreadbore that one. Elvish Mystic. That comes down. That dies 2 away. Boettcher quickly untaps and draws a card. It's a Nightveil Spectre. Lines up beautifully, allows him to attack with Mutavault and deploy another threat, even though it will die to Dreadbore. Boettcher gets to keep chipping away. Chandra is an expensive card that Velasquez cannot cast. Boettcher draws another copy of Negate. Velasquez is going to go down to 4. Sylvan Caryatid, are you there?
Yeah. Please, we need you.
A Duress from Boettcher. Gets to see exactly what Gonzalo has. You see a Dreadbore, a Xenagos, a Nissa, a Chandra, a Rakdos Return. All really powerful, good cards if he could cast them.
Yeah. One of the problems I ran into playing Jund Planeswalkers was just Mutavault. It was just like hard to contain if the other deck had a bunch of removal.
Mm-hmm.
You see something like Dreadbore where it's like, well, that card's good, but it's not instant.
It's an Urborg.
And that's
it's an
it.
Extension of the hand. Jared Boettcher is going to win this match over Gonzalo Velasquez. 2-1. Black Blue Devotion moves on to 8-1, taking down Jund Planeswalkers. With any luck for Jared, he will be able to draw into the top 8. We'll see if it's a clean cut or not.
Yeah.